Welcome back to Season 3 of How to Smash the Motherhood Penalty. This podcast is brought to you 100% by Works for Everyone, which is my business, Emma McLean. We are a professional development company that partners with New Zealand corporates to help them retain and grow their working parent talent. And we are so delighted to do that through leadership programs, executive coaching, and systemic change initiatives like this podcast and the New Zealand Part-Time Power List. So welcome aboard and thank you for listening. I have been loving talking to all the listeners who have reached out about how much they enjoyed Season 2, Making Space for Dads. And in this season, we're going to continue to mix it up. We've got some fantastic interviews coming up, all having the motherhood penalty at its heart, because we still need to talk about this. If you have enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe to it. Subscriptions don't cost anything, but it just means that you'll be the very first to know about the new episode that comes out. And if you are interested in more working parent content, come and follow me on Instagram, Works for Everyone. I often post working parent hints and tips and also video clips of these interviews. But enough about me. Back to my guests. See you soon. Hello, it's your friend Emma. Welcome back to How to Smash the Motherhood Penalty. Today's guest has been a long time in the making. We needed to get diaries sorted, but we have done that. So I am delighted to welcome along Dr. Ellen Joan Ford. Ellen has possibly the most impressive bio I've ever read, so I'm going to read it out in full. Ellen is terrifyingly ambitious about improving the working world for people and for organisations. Well, I'm tutokuing that for a start. As a leader, researcher, military veteran, international speaker, TEDx speaker, facilitator, consultant and parent, Ellen draws on her research and practical experiences to drive organisational outcomes by enhancing inclusive leadership capabilities and workplace culture. Ellen was awarded the Kiwibank New Zealander of the Year Local Hero for her efforts supporting the evacuation of 563 people from Afghanistan. Amazing. She was Person of the Year for the Manawatu Standard and also was awarded the very prestigious Sir Peter Blake Leadership Award. She is also the author of #WorkSchoolHours, which I know so many of my listeners have read, and her leadership model is belonging, autonomy and purpose. Kia ora, Ellen. Welcome. Look, I've read out your bio, but introduce yourself. Give us some other little interesting information about yourself. How else would you like people to know, Ellen?
Oh, Emma, I love this. And just firstly, I'm so excited. There's a kind of community of us that follow and support each other. And I've followed your work with massive passion over the last few years. So I'm just so thrilled to be on this with you.
Yeah.
Who am I? I mean, I'm Ellen. I'm just someone who gives a shit about stuff. And it's one of the reasons why I like your work, Smashing the Motherhood Penalty. Yeah, if I get pissed off about something that's not working, well, I want to change it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of my drivers for why I, started these movements and went out and started a business, and it's terrifying and it's exciting and I love it, and it is also hard work. But yes, that's who I am. And I've got two beautiful little boys who I obviously adore. They are a big part of my why, but I'm also not just a parent. I've, got stuff that I care about professionally as well.
Well, welcome. And so just thinking about your role as a parent and your role as a mother, just to kick it all off, we'll just go straight in there. When I say the word motherhood penalty, what comes into your mind?
So, and I actually referenced you in my book, Emma, about that particular phrase. So the motherhood penalty is about when a woman becomes a mother, there are a whole lot of penalties that she pays. Some of them are really overt, whereas others are more covert and subtle. And it can range from things like the loss of income for the period that they are away on parental leave. But it can also range from things like when they return from parental leave back to the office, the way that they are overlooked for promotions because they are potentially no longer considered fully committed or fully available to the firm because they have other commitments. Men are parents too, and I'm always really conscious of that. And I love this, really love that you are making space for fathers in this conversation. But the reality is at the moment, the people that bear the majority of the juggle of balancing both work and the majority of the parenting responsibility sits with the mother. And so as a result of that factor, mothers pay a motherhood penalty in the workforce because they are not there for the same, always there for the same amount of hours that the men are, because they are attending to motherhood tasks. And I think it's bullshit, as do you.
She's brought in the B word. That's good. We love it. I mean, when I heard you talk that back, right, you said a thing which I think is very, very insightful at the beginning, which is it's made up of overt things and also covert things.
Yeah.
And, you know, what, in your experience, what are the covert things that you think mothers are getting penalised with?
Yeah, so and look, I'll try and rattle through some of them and I won't get them all in one hit, but one of them is around the way that organisations typically, if there is a leadership position, it'll only be available for full-time people. Again, why I love your part-time power list. Like, just again, Emma, I love the stuff that you're doing, because in so many cases, there'll be mothers who are like, yeah, I want to work and I'm bloody good at my job and I want to promote and I want to progress and I want to lead other people. And I'd also really like to be there on some of the school pickup runs and I'd like to spend time with my kids. But if they don't, work what's considered full-time, they get a penalty in terms of not being eligible. It's almost like they're excluded from leadership positions. The other way, and I suppose that's sometimes overt, but also sometimes that can be done covertly. It's not necessarily said so explicitly. But there's other occasions where there's people that are, say, working in the office or at this whatever the job site is until after hours, and they are then viewed upon by the bosses as, wow, they're hard workers, wow, they're committed, they're really loyal, they're dedicated to the firm. Yet if there is a mother who is left at, say, 2:45 to do a school run, she doesn't get that same credit or isn't viewed in that way, regardless of the fact that she might actually be logging onto her computer later on at night. And even if she's not, regardless if she's actually delivering the exact same outputs as that other person who was there late, the person who is working late is regarded as a more dedicated and more loyal person. Therefore, the covert ways that women pay the motherhood penalty is that they are then not considered for the perk opportunities or the projects that are going to be potentially career advancing or the promotions. And so there are some of the subtle ways where it's not explicitly said. It's almost like if you take advantage of a flexible working policy or a reduced hours opportunity, you will be punished for it, even if that's not said explicitly.
Oh, so powerful. I love those two examples, right? Number one, when a senior leadership role is only offered full-time.
Yeah.
And again, it's the ultimate glass ceiling because it looks like you can do it. Like they're not saying no mums can have this job. But what they're saying, that when they say, well, it can only be done in full-time hours, you are probably, to your point, excluding a whole lot of mums. So again, that one for me is, well, they chose to work part-time. It's just their choice. And that's why I do the part-time power list, right? Because there is no innovation in job design in New Zealand / the world. And sorry, aren't we all clever and technologically advanced now? And where is the job design innovation? But anyway, the part-time power list, people, is coming back. Nominations are opening in August this year, so get excited. And then your second point, which I thought was excellent, is this whole not leaving the office at 2:30 or 3 and not being around when that juicy project is handed out. Because again, it's not covert. And it lines up with some research I heard Scott Galloway talking about on Pivot, which is a really good tech business podcast if you want to listen to it. And he was talking about remote workers, but he was saying that remote workers, he said, physical proximity matters. Remote workers are less likely to be promoted. And it's because we still have a system. And I know this isn't obvious. It's not like it's you don't talk, it's not said out loud, but when a boss looks around the office, who they see is who they're thinking about. And so in a way, and I wrote about this on LinkedIn, flexibility and part-time is a little bit of a trap if only women are doing it. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, yes to everything you just said then. So we do. We have a culture, and I don't just mean New Zealand, this is worldwide. We hero worship long hours and we reward presenteeism or proximity, which to me does not equate to what the value is that that person contributes to the organization. So almost like I'll park that for a second because I could share more on it. But what you said then, I talk about in my book around the idea that, if mothers are currently facing the majority of the childcare tasks, and so they are wanting more flexibility, the biggest thing I say is there's no bloody way do I want a world where mothers have the flexibility so they can break their back doing all the things, both work and childcare. It needs to be normalized. Otherwise, it's always considered this thing for mothers. I'm like, no, this is, first of all, should be for fathers as well. But also it should be people that don't have kids. I just really quickly, I often share this example. My little brother, Ewan, who I'm just ridiculously proud of, he's an Iron Man. He, no kids. And he's like, I'd love to be able to do my training during daylight hours. So almost like unless you normalize the idea of flexibility for everyone, it still becomes this sort of mother's thing, which completely contributes to the motherhood penalty.
Yeah, totally agree, right? Like normalizing it for everyone reduces the stigma for everyone. And it's just a win-win-win-win slot machine, really, isn't it? Do you think you paid the motherhood penalty?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm a solo mum now, and you can read into that what you will. What I would say is when I returned from parental leave first time, I was working at a company or an organisation, NZTE, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, as kind of doing business consulting for exporters. And I would say, Emma, at the start, I don't believe that I did. I certainly was doing the majority of the stuff in the household, and that's sort of another conversation. But I realised not until after the fact that I actually was an anomaly, Emma. My boss was actually bloody brilliant. He just said to me, Ellen, I trust you to do your job. You do it when it suits you. So I did not work Fridays. So I got paid my full salary to deliver my full outputs, but I spent Fridays with my child. Regularly, I would pick my kid up from daycare early because I'd get my work finished, and so I'd spend that time with him. And so I was like, this is brilliant. This is what life should be like. And it was only when I went on parental leave second time round and NZT was going through this restructure and I realized I was going to get a new boss. And it was after that, Emma, that I'd done all this research, like this massive postdoctoral project on working parents, that I was like, holy shit, like I'm an exception. Everyone else is not getting that. And I realized that if I return back to work with a new boss, I'm going to get one of the other outcomes that everyone else has. So kind of a long answer there is, I don't know that I did because I realized I actually had what would be considered exceptional circumstances. And which is why I'm like, these shouldn't be the exception. These should be the norm. I did well at my job. I got great reports and delivered great outcomes. And I had the flexibility that I needed to feel good about myself as a mum.
This lived experience of being able to be a mum and have a career, it sounds like it's been really motivating for you to create stories and messaging and enthusiasm and this revolution for #WorkSchoolHours. Like, that's personal.
Oh yeah, deeply personal, Emma. And exactly right. I was like, well, I've experienced it as an employee. I'm now living it as a self-employed person. I know it works. I've got tons of other examples. And so I'm like, I want everyone to have this.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, what is #WorkSchoolHours, my friend?
So, #WorkSchoolHours.
But it is a book you can buy. And actually, in the show notes, Ellen has very generously given everyone a code to get a free copy of her ebook. hashtag work school hours, but tell us, what is the overall concept? If someone was going to talk about hashtag work school hours, what would you want them to be talking about?
So it's a principles-based philosophy, concept, idea. So what I'd firstly say is what it's not.
Yeah.
So yes, the phrase hashtag work school hours, people think, oh, Ellen thinks the entire world should work from 9 till 3. And well, she's an idiot because we wouldn't want hospitals to close at 3 o'clock. So firstly, I'm not an idiot and I know that. So it's almost like kind of the clickbait because the title catches parents' attention.
Yeah.
So what is hashtag work school hours? It's based on 3 principles. The first one is that organizations should do more to value the fact that people have things they care about beyond work. Simple as that. People have shit beyond work. Now, that could be children. That was the genesis for hashtag work school hours, but actually everyone has stuff beyond work. The second principle is to focus more on outputs as opposed to hours. This fixation we have, and we touched on it at the very start, hours in the office, that does not equate to how much value a person contributed to an organization. So it's really about focusing on outputs, not hours. And then the third one, Emma, is just to give people as much flexibility as possible. And what I say there, and I know you know this in your work too, is how flexibility looks and is applied in practice is different for every industry, every organization, every team. So it's about finding a way. Flexibility by nature should be flexible in its application. So the book and the concept, basically, it's 3 parts. 1, what's the problem? How did we arrive here? And we have this just archaic way of working, which I can share more if you want. The second bit is, what is the work school hours? Why does it benefit people? But also, why is this a commercially smart business proposition? This is not a, hey, I want to help people and I have these lovely ideas for the world. And no, this is a business proposition. Like, this is commercially smart. You want to attract and retain great talent. You want to get your people as engaged and productive as possible. Like, this is good for business. And then the third part is about, well, how do you actually put this into practice in different settings? So that's a slightly longer nutshell, sorry.
No, Ellen, you know that all people who know me are banned from saying the word sorry. I think I just heard you say it. So I have to call it out, but that's fine.
All right.
What I really, I do want people to know that this idea, as you say, it's a principle. It's right. So for me, it's a principle that we don't need to be working in 2025 in the same way that we were working in 50 or 32 or whatever it was. And that maybe we can trust people a bit more, and maybe people have other things going on in their lives, and maybe a competitive advantage is actually how we structure work for our people. As you say, the concept is broader than just parents. And I take your brother's story as well around being a professional athlete and training for that and having other stuff that's not important to in life. But the other reason why I think employers need to get on with this kind of way of thinking is that if you even just look at the lens of caregiving, up to 75% of our workforce are caregivers. Whether that is caring for a child, a pet, an elderly family member, a friend who is on a cancer, has a cancer diagnosis, all that kind of stuff, we are going to have additional needs in terms of how we fulfill those caregiving requirements and do our job. So this isn't going away, right?
Yes, like just so massive yes to that. We've got an aging population. So there are more and more workers who will be caring for elderly relatives. That's a fact. And as you say, it's not going away. It's going to grow. And with 80% of the population becoming parents at some stage, and that's just those 2 demographics, people with kids and people with elderly family members. But as you say, there's people who have pets, there's people who have medical challenges, there's people who might want to get into couch surfing, whatever it is. We all have stuff beyond work. And if employers can do more to recognize that, not as a handout. This is not me saying, be nicer, care more about your people to be a decent human. Obviously, I believe that. I'm motivated by the heart. But it's like, if you do this stuff, you'll get a competitive advantage because your people will deliver better outputs for you and you will make more money. Like there's a commercial reason for why businesses should do this.
Yeah, no, I love that. In that work you've been doing through hashtag work school hours in your advocacy work, but also in your work as a leadership consultant, what have you learnt? What are some of the levers that organisations can pull to try to reduce the motherhood penalty? What are some of the things you would be suggesting?
Yeah, so I fundamentally look at this from a leadership frame. Like, that's my background, Emma, right? I led soldiers in the military, and I say that not to, oh, woohoo, look at me, but, I've led people in really practical situations. The military, we do some tricky things overseas. I've been lucky enough to lead in the corporate sector, and I fundamentally think this is about good leadership. And if you are going to lead people, so my leadership model, Emma, is belonging, autonomy, and purpose. And I often share that I think a leader's job is to create an environment where people can thrive and then direct that thriving energy at the task that needs to be achieved. And first of all, doing that as a leader says nothing about how many hours you should be working. Hence, part-time powerless, people can achieve that, create environments where people can thrive. It's not about how many hours they did. And what is it that people need to thrive? Well, I believe they need a sense of belonging, they need autonomy, and they need purpose. And so I help leaders to kind of develop those capabilities. And it's almost like, I don't even talk about it from a motherhood point of view. It's just, I come in and be like, this is how you can be a better inclusive leader of all of your people. And I say to them things like, so you said, what can they do? It's actually have a conversation with each of your people and be like, hey, like, what do you have on beyond work? How can we make you thrive as much as possible in this organization? What would help to create win-win situations? And almost like again, sorry, I think I'm repeating myself about to, but it's not about motherhood. It's about just how do you lead all of your people, and all of your people have different things that appeal to them. But in terms of if someone was specifically wanting to implement #WorkSchoolHours principles, what I often say is just as a starting point, like, just give something a try. You don't have to you don't have to overturn everything overnight, but why don't you just start by finishing in time for school collection 1 day a week? Just see how that goes. And that's sometimes just the entry point. I had a company recently who they used to have a senior leaders call at 8:30 in the morning once a week. And so they changed that to 9:15. And they were like, oh my gosh, this was a tiny little thing. But the amount of parents they had doing the school run and trying to join a team call and feeling shit about themselves for not succeeding in either, just one little change makes no negative impact on the business, but it makes a positive impact. I don't know. Sorry, that probably wasn't my best answer.
No.
I said sorry.
You actually said sorry twice in that whole little chapter, but it's fine. I'm not that I'm counting or keeping a little score, or we'll be sending you an invoice for it, but don't worry about it. No, when I heard you talk that back, right, like, what can organizations do? Well, we can get better at our leadership, right? We can be more intentional with our leader. We can create environments where people feel like they are trusted, they belong, they can be autonomous, they can thrive. Yeah. And that's easier to say though, right? But I do think it's got a big benefit. And then you've got the little tiny things, which is, let's just have a look at times of, weekly meetings, when they're starting, when they're ending. Are they enabling as many possible as we can to attend them? Is it biggie to move them to 10 a.m.? Those tiny little things can have a big impact. And I love your example of your organization that just starts somewhere and just see where you get. But are there any other people that you've come across in your travels, like organizations that you think are really carrying the light for others in terms of great leadership, trusting people with outcomes and flexibility? I mean, anyone you want to, who's carrying the light in this area of redesigning work, do you think?
So actually, I will do a shout out to one company that's just top of mind is Paper Kite. And I've actually, so on my website, I've got a #WorkSchoolHours page, and I've got some case studies.
Oh, cool.
And so Paper Kite is on there. The person I spoke with was Rob Holmes. And he just, I didn't have anything to do with it. This was him just sharing it with me. But he's like, my starting point is, how do we get each of our people to thrive? And we go from there. So I think that's a really great example. There's another one, an accounting firm, and oh my goodness, I've just forgotten their name. But again, it's on my website. They do effectively a school hours day. STEM accounting is what it is. And they pay their people for the full day. And the woman that I interviewed, she was just like, it's amazing. We have better outcomes by doing less hours. So I think there are two great examples. One that's, I think, really cool because it's not professional services is, so I've done a lot of work in the food and fibre sector. I was lucky enough to be involved in a leadership project for food and fibre. And there was a dairy farm So, they've got to milk cows twice a day. And this particular organisation, they designed their milking schedule entirely around the school bus in that community. So they knew that their milkers, dairy farm workers, were also parents. And so they made sure that those parents were basically finished in time to be back for the school bus drop off in the afternoon. And they wouldn't start until after the kids had been collected in the bus that morning. And to me, I was like, that's an organisation that gets it. They're like, we need to retain great people. The people in our community are parents. So we need to design work around that.
I love that example.
Yeah.
I love that example. I mean, I think I've used this quote before, but if you look after your people look after your customers, and your customers look after your business. But I think too often we look after the business.
Yeah.
And like, what if we looked after the people and we said, okay, the people that are going to working for us, right, well, they need to be at drop-offs and pickups of the school bus. Let's organise it all around that. It's such an innovative / sensible way of thinking about things.
Exactly, Emma. Like, it's so innovative, but also it's so simple and basic. Literally it's, and this idea that we live in this society where we're expected to work as if we don't have children and parent as if we don't have a job. I mean, that's ridiculous. The 9 to 5 was invented well over a century ago, when every household had a dedicated worker, the man, and a dedicated caregiver of children, which was the mother. They were two different people, but that's not how, we're the same people. It just, as you say, it's just bonkers to me that we haven't changed our construct of work to align with the fact that people who are workers are also the same people who have shit going on beyond work.
Because it does feel, to use your word bonkers, why do you think it hasn't changed? What do you think is behind this sort of system that might say on the website that we, embrace family-friendly stuff and offer flexible working, but when you get in there, you also have a boss that says that does need to be done by 5? What do you reckon's behind that, kind of weirdness, really, that we say we've kind of changed? I'll tell people my age who don't really know what I do, I'll tell them what I do and they'll go, oh yeah, but that's getting fixed now, isn't it? And I wanted to get your thoughts on, is it getting fixed? Are we allowing, parents to thrive at work? Why is this happening still, do you think? Quite a big question, I know, but I know you're up for it, Ellen.
So, yes, big question. So if I go the last one first, which is it getting fixed?
Yeah.
My answer to that is there is a bucket load more to do.
Yeah.
So you and I are not out of a job yet, Emma, and I'd love it if we were.
Yeah.
So
be careful what you wish for, Ellen. Be careful what you wish for.
Actually, no.
You really do wish for it. Good.
I do.
I love it.
I really wish that I wasn't having to convince people of why they should be more inclusive of their team, and which includes parents, but includes everyone. I wish that wasn't a requirement.
Yeah.
So is there some light and is there some improvement? Yes, there are examples of businesses that are doing a really great job. But I'd also say there's a lot of businesses who post-COVID are like, oh, let's just return to how we did everything before. So in short, it is not being fixed. This is still important and this still needs to be addressed. Why, to your first question, is basically when women started entering the workforce en masse, which was decades ago, but not 2025, it was very much a case of women, you are allowed to be in the workforce. We'll let you in. We're not going to put specific rules on anymore that you can't be. But there wasn't you're actually welcome and you're really valued and included. It's we will let you. You just need to fit in like everyone else. And at that point, the ideal worker was a person who could work 9 to 5, 5 days a week without any distractions beyond work. Because at that stage, the workers were men and they had a wife who took care of all the home stuff. They didn't need to do it. So it's kind of like, many decades ago, women entered, but there was no real change to properly include them. And it was also a case of women, you can join the workforce, but you still had to do everything at home that you used to do. And so it was kind of like women entered the workforce en masse, but you didn't see the same level of enthusiasm of men really entering and contributing to the home force at that same point. And I think that's how this is it's permeated over the decades. Women, sure, you can be in the workforce, but you've got to be a superwoman to do it and juggle everything else as well. This is not actually me trying to be cynical or smart. I just, that's a fact. Like that is how it happened. I think the other thing is, why does it stay, Emma, is I think there's a bit of a fear of leaders. So I, the work I do in the leadership space, often talk about the fact that people typically get promoted into leadership positions because they're technically competent at the job, but no one teaches them actually how to be a leader. And so what happens is the old model of leadership, which I'd actually call management, it's not really leadership, is if you can see your people, you got it sorted. And so there are many, many people in leadership positions who are scared of not doing their kind of previous management role, which is I need to be able to see the people to know what they're doing. Whereas I think we need to upskill these leaders into how to be leaders and inspire their people to thrive. And the word trust you just used, that then comes out. We don't need to observe the person at their computer. We don't need to observe them. We just need to trust that they've done their outputs because we've been really clear on what those expectations are. And when we switch to a focus on outputs, we actually can get much clearer on who's delivering what anyway, as opposed to managing hours.
Again, when I think about what you just said then, why is this still happening? Because we haven't empowered men to become caregivers in the same way that we've empowered women to be in the boardroom. And I do think that is a massive part of the puzzle. And there's also so much good that comes from that. Obviously, people who listen to this podcast will know that. But when we actually have all genders who are involved in managing this whole system of working and having a family, we will actually have all genders getting first-hand experience of how stuffed it is. As in school holidays, 12 weeks of leave that you have to find, 12 weeks of budget for school holiday programs that can be up to $60 per child per day.
Per day,
per day times 10, whatever. That doesn't include any excursions. And I just think when we get more men working part-time and still delivering full-time outcomes, more men who have to budget for school holiday programs and find them and negotiate with their kids on why they want to go to the Mount Albert YMCA on a cold day, more people doing that, we will get change. Because when it's only one gender that is actually experiencing how blinking hard this is, there's no incentive for the other one to do any change.
Yeah, Emma, I agree. And it's all one of the things that I love about the way you do this as well is it's actually about being really inclusive. So it's not saying, men, you've got to be better and we're blaming you, because actually that's not what this conversation is about at all. It's how do we enable fathers to be part of the parenting role more than what they currently are. I've interviewed lots of dads who are like, my boss just laughed at me when I said I'd like to take some time off with the kids. And, it was just basically told they want to take a day off for the kids sick. Oh, what's your wife doing? So
I actually had a client, and this is for all those people out there that won't be listening to this podcast, obviously, who think that it is fixed. I had a client the other day say that her husband had asked to take some time off because their child was sick and she had a big, massive offsite meeting she had to go to. And not only did they say, they didn't say, don't you have a wife? When he said, I need to have 2 days off because my kids are sick, they said, don't you have parents that can do this? And it's like, and because also in breaking news for everyone out there, most of us don't have parents living by anymore. A lot of us are living in different countries. A lot of our parents are still working. So this village idea is just not there. And that's what makes it really extra hard for dads, I think, because when they summon up the courage to ask for caregiving leave, to have a boss say to them, yeah, don't you have parents that could do that? That's a kick in the guts, right?
Absolutely, Emma. You're right. And that's another thing. The communities of days gone by were, much more closer in proximity to other family members. The other thing that would be of real value if men were able to contribute more in the home force, and this isn't actually ragging on them for not, it's ragging on the system that makes this difficult to do. I think we'd have happier family units. I talk to a lot of people that have gone through separations or are still married, and one of the biggest kind of gripes about their partner is they feel that they don't get it, all the stuff they're doing for the kids at home, and there's sort of argument and tension between who's doing what responsibilities at home. And so if there was a more equitable opportunity for dads to be at home, I think you'd have much happier marriages.
Yeah, as I said, it's the slot machines of pineapples all in a row.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that. Pineapples in a row. Yes.
Yeah, well, like pretend you're in Las Vegas. I've never been there myself, but you've pulled the slot machine and they're all in a row. And I think that's what happens when we enable mums and dads to be able to be active caregivers without it penalizing their career. And everyone wins because we have better relationships together as a couple, better relationships with our kids, better mental health outcomes for everyone. And it's, as I say, I think it's not until you do this that you understand it. So, I know a lot of my guests have said, we need men taking parental leave because it's not until, when things get set up right at the start, it's very hard to change them.
Yes.
And so, but I think part of this is experiencing it. It's experiencing that it takes 20 minutes to get your kids to put shoes on in the morning.
Yes.
And it's very annoying. Not that I've got cameras in your house, but yeah, I do.
The other thing, just to almost, is it okay if I kind of almost add to that and push it a little bit? So I agree with you. Once you experience it, it is like your eyes just open. I think about what I was like before I had kids. Sure, I would like to think that I was relatively nice and thoughtful that other people might have children, but I didn't really get it. But the other thing I'd say almost as a slight counterfactual to that is, as a leader, I don't need to have walked in the shoes of every single person in my team. So parenting or motherhood is one of the sets of shoes you could walk in, but there'll be people who have different ethnic backgrounds who would have faced other challenges because of that. There'll be people who might have a physical disability who have experienced a different challenge, which I won't have the opportunity to experience those things. But this is why I'm like, it's just about good leadership. You need to give a shit about your people and actually get to know them as humans.
Yeah.
And so, the more leaders can do that and be like, oh, okay, you've got some children. Let's help you with that. But not at the exclusion of people that don't have children. It's just, how do we get to know all of our people and find out what makes them tick, what would help their lives, and then they'll deliver it back for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think you don't have to have walked in someone's shoes, and it's good for you to be curious about others' lived experiences. Like I think that everyone has a different lived experience, and getting curious around what are the pinch points for them, like how might you as a leader make those less pinchy? Like, are there opportunities for you to do that? A lot of the leaders that I work with, it's trying to, if you're having catch-ups, it's getting beyond fine, which is, an acronym, fine is not enough. How are you fine? It's, well, no, how brilliant. Are you? Yeah, how are you really? And like, I actually had a client the other day, and she said, she's been back at work from parental leave. It's her second parental leave. She's been back in a couple of months, and she's really overloaded, and that's why she was having coaching with me. And her manager, she said, my manager's really good because he comes over a lot and he goes, how are you? And is everything okay? And is your workload okay? And she will just respond, oh, it's fine. I'm just very busy. And then she'll go back to her work. And I'm like, yeah, but are you fine? Because we just want people to guess. We want our manager to guess and just to know that we're overloaded. I would love my leaders to create relationships where people can feel like they can share how it feels to be me right now. So how it feels to be me right now is, I love my job. I'm really happy to be back. I have no idea how I'm going to fit 5 days worth of work into 4 days, but I'm trying really hard, but I don't think it's working and I need your help. That's the conversation she really needs to have, right? But we need to do everything we can as a leader to facilitate that. So, for example, it's not a BTW in the hall. It's like a coffee catch-up every week for the first 4 weeks. So I think leaders need to do different things to get curious about people.
Yes. And as you say, doing it intentionally. And that's, again, this is not all about how do we help mums. This is just how do you be a better leader so that you actually get the most out of your people so that they'll deliver the best outcomes for your business.
Yes. Well, it's kind of how to be a better human.
Well, actually, stop. Even yes.
It's kind of like be more human. I don't know. I'm not being down on leaders, but because leaders have a lot to do, as you say, and a lot have been promoted based on technical competence. But I think it is if we can kind of embrace our humanity, our curiosity. As Jacinda Ardern says, kindness is a strength, not as a weakness. Then we'll all be. I'll come and work for that person. It'll be good.
Yeah, no, kindness is such a strength. And people sometimes think that kindness means that you let people get away with everything and you just become a walkover. That is not true. Kindness is actually holding someone to account if they didn't deliver what they said they would deliver on time. Like, so kindness is not some wiffly-waffly pushover with sunshine and rainbows. Kindness is someone who gives a shit about you as a person, and they will also hold you to account.
Yeah. And I think kind is a lot of things, like Brene Brown says, clear is kind.
Yes.
Unclear is unkind. And I really love that frame up as well, because boy, I've been in so many jobs where things have been unclear, and like unclear roles and responsibilities, unclear task outcomes. Like you leave a meeting with your boss and they've told you to do something, but you're not really sure what the outcome looks like. And if you're ever grey, that's bad news bears. So I always say, you have to say, for clarity, what does this outcome look like? Is it an Excel spreadsheet? Is it a PowerPoint? Or do you just want me to verbally update you? Full stop silence, because clear is kind, because otherwise I'm going to go away hating on that manager, and that manager's got no idea why. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think kindness is. Final question for you, Ellen.
Yes.
If I gave you a magic wand, because everyone on this podcast gets a magic wand, and like it's really magic. Some people have even used both ends of it, so they've had 2 wishes. But if you could do one thing that you think would really make a difference in smashing the motherhood penalty, really smash this idea that up to 55% of a mother's salary over 10 years is lost, her confidence is lost, and her retirement savings less, what would you use that magic wand for?
So I'm going to use both ends of it then.
Oh, see, I've given her permission. She's going straight for it.
So one of them would be a magic wand around leadership capabilities. I think that leaders have the biggest opportunity to influence the largest amount of people. So helping leaders understand that the more they can do to help their people thrive, the better humans they'll be, to your point, but also the better that's going to be for their organization. So that would be one. The other side is just like really magic wand is for us to live in a society where we are not expected to work as if we don't have kids and parent as if we don't have a job. That is the society we live in, and that's the thing I want to change. So I'd just magic wand that and not have that be the case anymore.
Yeah, I love that. So lifting up leadership capability overall, which will benefit everyone.
Yeah.
And secondly, not having to work like you don't have a family, or family like you don't have work. I mean, for that later point, a system that does that, what would I see in a system like that would make me know we've got there? What are some of the tangible things I would see in a system that means that I don't have to hide being a parent when I'm at work? What would you see, do you think?
So some of the things could be that the way that work is structured is, and by the way, I'm just assuming, by the way, that the school terms are fixed. That's kind of a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But let's just assume school's how it is.
Yeah.
what we would see is projects and timelines and deadlines structured around the school terms. So we already operate in financial quarters. It's actually not that hard to align them with the 4 school terms. We would see more of it being normalized that, say, the core hours where you might have your team together are kind of in the middle chunk of the day. So there's flexibility for people to do school runs either side. You would be seeing more men involved in childcare responsibilities. You would see it normalized for every staff member to be doing things beyond work. So again, not just people that are parents, for other people, it would be normalized that they might go for a run in the afternoon if they wanted to, or might go do some study time. So that would just be normal. We would see leaders who, when they say, how are you, they actually want to know the answer to it. We'd see it normalized that people feel comfortable and feel safe to share what's going on in their personal life at work, that would be celebrated, not condemned. We would see people promoted into leadership positions based on the value they contribute to the organization, not the number of hours they worked. We would see people feeling empowered to juggle their own kind of life. Like, sometimes we talk about work and life. I'm like, well, no, you've got life and there's different facets within it. And so people were like, I know what my outputs are for work. I know the shit I got to do for my family. Might actually be able to do something for myself, heaven forbid. And I get to have more control over how I juggle those things around. So they would be, I think, if you were experiencing all that, I think you'd be a lot closer to that more ideal world.
Yeah, and I think when you talk that back, there's lots of good examples there. Again, it's back to this idea that we've talked about earlier, which is, what if we put our people at the center of how we design our organization, and not our business at the center of our organization? So, and that's quite a big idea, right? That's quite a big idea, but that's why you've got the magic wand and you've used, the other end of it. But no, I really love that idea, because that's like, this stuff is not incremental. It needs to be, as you talk about, like revolutionary. Like, it needs to be, it's because when little tweaks, like changing team meeting times, good. But if we really had a magic wand, we change how the system works. We really do. We do all those things. So I love that, Ellen.
Okay. Thanks for the magic wand, Emma. I appreciate it. It was fun to have.
You're welcome. It's good to have a magic wand. Thank you so much. I will put all the details of Ellen's business and her website in the show notes. And she has given me a little offer for the listeners. Tell me what that offer is, Ellen.
Yes, I did.
I can also tell you what that offer is. The code is actually Emma.
Yes, it is.
And you can use that code to get a free copy of Ellen's ebook, #WorkSchoolHours. So if this has piqued your interest, you can go on and get that book with the code Emma, and I'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you very much, Ellen, for coming along, for sharing your observations of this system, for sharing your kind of why of starting off with #WorkSchoolHours and your evolution into leadership as trying to improve this leadership capability overall. It's been fantastic to have you on. I know so many people will have got value from this conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Emma. Thank you for having me, Emma. And I love what you do. So it's awesome. It's awesome to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Cool. Onwards and upwards. This podcast was funded by Works for Everyone, a business that is dedicated to supporting working parents and to smashing the motherhood penalty. If this is also your jam, let's stay connected. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for us, Works for Everyone. And if you want more information on how we help businesses put a care wrap around their employees, check us out on worksforeveryone.co.nz. Or if none of these work for you, in the weekends you can find me, Emma McLean, the founder of Works for Everyone, in the queue at Pack and Save Royal Oak or Kmart St Luke's. Onwards!